The stars looked different from the bridge of the UES horizon as it moved through space toward the trading station. Commander Alex Carter stood watching the view screen, while his crew worked at their stations behind him. The ship was small compared to the alien vessels they had seen in the reports back on Earth. It carried 50 humans who represented their entire world in this first attempt to join the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Morgan sat at her station studying the information they had about the different alien races. The Zephyrians were tall beings with hard crystal-like skin that could stop bullets. They had ruled most of the galaxy for 3,000 years with their powerful ships and advanced weapons. The Vorthon Empire controlled another large part of space with warriors who could live in the cold vacuum without protection. There were dozens of other species, each one seeming stronger and more advanced than humans in some way. Ambassador Jake Phillips checked his papers one more time. He had spent months preparing for this meeting with the Galactic Alliance Council. Earth needed resources and technology that only membership in the Alliance could provide. Their home planet was running out of materials needed for their growing population. Without help from the galaxy, humans would be trapped in their solar system forever. The trading station appeared on their screens as a massive structure spinning slowly in space. It was bigger than any city on Earth and home to millions of beings from across the galaxy. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it like insects around a bright light. The human ship looked tiny next to the sleek vessels of the established races. Alex guided the horizon toward the docking bay that had been assigned to them. He could see alien workers moving around the station through the windows. Some walked on two legs like humans while others floated or crawled with tentacles. Many wore suits to protect them from the station's atmosphere, which was designed to support the most common species. When they docked, Jake led a small group, including Alex and Lisa, through the station's corridors. The ceilings were high to accommodate the taller races, making the humans feel even smaller. Alien beings stopped to stare at them as they passed. Some pointed and made sounds that might have been laughter. Others simply looked at them like they were looking at animals in a zoo. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles around a central platform. Representatives from dozens of species filled the room, their various forms creating a strange and colorful display. At the front sat the High Counselors, the most powerful leaders in the galaxy. High Counselor Zarthex of the Zephyrians was easy to spot with his 9-foot-tall frame and diamond-hard skin that sparkled under the lights. Jake stepped onto the central platform and began his presentation. He talked about humanity's achievements, their rapid technological progress, and their desire to contribute to galactic civilization. He showed videos of human cities, their art, and their scientific discoveries. The alien representatives listened in silence, some making notes while others seemed bored. When Jake finished, the questions began. The Zephyrian counselor asked about human physical capabilities. When told that humans could only survive a few minutes in space without protection, several aliens made dismissive sounds. A Vorthon representative wanted to know about their military strength. The answer that humans had never fought a space battle brought more negative reactions from the crowd. High Counselor Zarthex stood up to address the chamber. His voice was deep and echoed off the walls as he spoke. He said that humans were interesting but clearly not ready for membership in the Alliance. They were too weak physically to contribute to galactic defense. Their technology was primitive compared to established standards. Most importantly, they had never proven themselves in the challenges that shape true civilizations. Other counselors agreed with harsh words about human limitations. They said humans were too emotional and unpredictable to work with other species safely. Their short lifespans meant they could not maintain long-term commitments that galactic cooperation required. One alien suggested that humans might evolve into something worthwhile in a few thousand years if they survived that long. Lisa watched the proceedings with growing anger, but kept quiet as Jake had instructed. She knew that emotional outbursts would only prove the aliens' points about human instability. Alex stood rigid next to her, his hands clenched into fists that showed white knuckles. The final vote was unanimous against human membership. High Counselor Zarthex delivered the decision with barely hidden contempt in his crystalline voice. He suggested that humans return to their home system and focus on improving themselves until they could meet the basic requirements for galactic citizenship. Perhaps in several centuries they might become worthy of reconsideration. Jake accepted the decision with dignity that impressed even some of the alien representatives. He thanked the council for their time and consideration while maintaining perfect diplomatic composure. But inside he burned with the unfairness of being judged by standards that seemed designed to keep humans out forever. The walk back to their ship felt longer than before. More aliens stared at them now, word having spread quickly about the rejected application. Some looked at the humans with pity while others showed open amusement at their failure. A few younger aliens seemed curious about these strange beings, but kept their distance from the adults around them. As the horizon undocked from the station, Alex stood again at his view screen, watching the massive structure shrink into the distance. The alien ships around them continued their business as if nothing important had happened. To them, the rejection of humanity was just another routine decision in the endless politics of galactic governance. Jake joined Alex at the front of the bridge as they prepared for the long journey home. Neither man spoke for several minutes as they watched the stars ahead of them. Finally, Jake broke the silence by saying that this was not the end but just the beginning. Earth would not accept being locked out of the galaxy forever based on the narrow views of species who had forgotten what it meant to struggle and grow. Lisa looked up from her station where she had been reviewing the recordings of their meeting. She had noticed something interesting about the alien technology during their visit. Their ships and stations were impressive, but seemed to rely heavily on the same energy systems that had been used for centuries. It was as if they had stopped innovating once they achieved dominance over others. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks, giving the crew plenty of time to think about what they had experienced. Many of the younger crew members were angry and wanted to know why their species should be judged by beings who had never faced the challenges that shaped human civilization. Others were discouraged and wondered if the aliens might be right about human limitations. But Alex found himself thinking about something different. The aliens had dismissed humans as weak because they measured strength by individual physical power and technological superiority. They had not recognized or valued the things that made humans unique among the species they had encountered. Their unity in the face of challenges, their ability to adapt quickly to new situations, and their refusal to accept defeat as final were seen as signs of weakness rather than strength. When Earth appeared on their view screen, looking blue and beautiful against the black of space, Alex made a decision that would change everything. Humanity had been judged and found wanting by alien standards, but those standards might not be the only measure of what made a species valuable to the galaxy. 6 months passed after the rejection at the trading station, and things began to get worse for human ships trying to travel through space. Captain Ryan Brooks was the first to experience what the aliens called their new protection policy, but what felt more like punishment to the humans who lived through it. Ryan was carrying medical supplies to the frontier colony at Haven's Rest when 3 Zephyrian interceptor ships surrounded his cargo vessel New Frontier. The alien ships were sleek and fast, easily keeping pace with his much slower transport. Their crystalline hulls reflected the light from the nearby star as they moved into formation around him. The lead Zephyrian captain contacted Ryan through the communication system. His voice was cold and formal as he explained that human vessels were now required to use approved shipping routes that would keep them away from other species. The new route would add 3 weeks to Ryan's journey, time that the colonists at Haven's Rest could not afford to wait for their desperately needed medical supplies. When Ryan tried to argue that his current path was through open space that belonged to no one, the alien captain cut him off. He said that the Galactic Alliance had voted to protect established species from contamination by primitive influences. Human ships would follow the approved routes or face the consequences of violating galactic law. Ryan had no choice but to change course. His ship was unarmed and could not outrun the alien interceptors. He watched his fuel gauge drop as the longer route forced him to burn more power than he had planned for the journey. The colonists would have to wait even longer for help, while Ryan made stops at expensive alien fuel stations that charged humans triple the normal rates. Other human captains reported similar encounters over the following weeks. Ships carrying food to remote settlements were forced to take routes that spoiled their cargo. Scientific vessels studying asteroid fields were escorted away from their research sites. Even passenger ships carrying human families to new homes found themselves redirected through dangerous regions of space that the aliens claimed were the only approved paths for human travel. The situation reached a breaking point when Dr. Helen Stone's research vessel Endeavour was studying an ancient derelict ship in a region of space that belonged to no government. Helen had spent 3 years preparing for this expedition to investigate technology that might help humanity bridge the gap between their capabilities and those of the established alien races. The derelict was massive and clearly very old, possibly predating even the Zephyrian civilization. Helen's team had just begun their careful examination of the outer hull when a Zephyrian battle fleet arrived without warning. The alien commander immediately ordered the human ship to leave the area and never return. Helen tried to explain that her team was conducting peaceful scientific research in unclaimed space. She showed them her credentials and research permits issued by Earth's government. The alien commander was not interested in human paperwork. He said that primitive species had no right to disturb the sacred artifacts of their betters. When Helen refused to abandon 3 years of work and millions of dollars in preparation, the alien commander gave her 1 hour to collect her team and leave. Helen used the time to frantically download as much data as possible from their scans of the derelict. Her team worked with desperate efficiency to save whatever they could of their research. The hour passed quickly, and Helen was still trying to retrieve data when the Zephyrian ships opened fire. The research vessel Endeavour had no shields or weapons to defend itself. The alien energy beams cut through the human ship like it was made of paper. Helen watched her crew die around her. As the ship broke apart under the devastating attack, only 3 people survived out of 15 crew members. Helen herself made it to an escape pod along with 2 junior researchers. They were picked up days later by a passing human freighter, burned and traumatized by what they had experienced. The Zephyrians had not bothered to rescue any survivors, or even check if there were any. When news of the attack reached Earth, the reaction was immediate and angry. President Karen Walsh called an emergency session of the United Earth Council. She stood before the assembled representatives and declared that humanity would no longer accept being treated as second-class citizens in their own galaxy. The president announced that Earth was beginning immediate construction of a new type of ship designed specifically for defense against alien aggression. Human engineers had been studying every piece of alien technology they could find since the rejection at the trading station. They had discovered that the aliens relied heavily on energy weapons and shields that had not changed much in centuries. General Nathan Pierce was appointed as Earth's first strategic defense commander. He had been a military engineer before the space program began and understood both warfare and technology better than most humans. Nathan looked at the alien ships and weapons with the eye of someone who had spent his life finding weaknesses in seemingly invincible systems. The aliens laughed when they heard about human military preparations. High Admiral Keth Vell of the Zephyrian fleet made public statements comparing the threat from human weapons to being attacked by insects. He pointed out that human projectile weapons were thousands of years behind alien energy technology and could never penetrate their advanced defensive systems. Other alien leaders agreed with this assessment. They had seen human technology during the diplomatic mission and found it crude and primitive. The idea that beings who still used chemical rockets and metal bullets could threaten civilizations that had mastered quantum physics and energy manipulation seemed ridiculous to them. But Nathan Pierce had noticed something that the aliens missed in their arrogance. Their energy shields were designed to deflect other energy weapons, not solid objects moving at high speed. Their beautiful crystalline hulls were perfect for scattering laser beams, but might behave very differently when hit by dense metal projectiles, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Human shipyards began working around the clock to build the first true warships in their history. The designs were based on lessons learned from studying alien encounters and the wreckage of ships like the Endeavour. Where alien vessels were elegant and beautiful, human ships were practical and functional. They carried railguns that could accelerate metal slugs to incredible velocities and missile systems that relied on kinetic energy rather than exotic physics. Dr. Lisa Morgan, who had been part of the original diplomatic mission, found herself reassigned to work with Nathan's team on understanding alien psychology and tactics. She studied recordings of alien communications and behavior, looking for patterns that might give human forces an advantage in any future conflicts. What Lisa discovered was that the established alien races had become comfortable in their dominance. They had not fought a real war in centuries, instead engaging in ritualized conflicts with predictable rules and outcomes. Their military thinking had become rigid and focused on displaying power rather than actually fighting determined opponents. The first human warships were ready for testing within 4 months of the attack on the Endeavour. Admiral Susan Cole, formerly a cargo ship captain like Ryan Brooks, was chosen to command the new defense fleet. She had volunteered for military service after hearing about the treatment of human civilians by alien forces. Susan's flagship was the UES Defiance, a ship that looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels that dominated the galaxy. It was angular and heavily armored, carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. More importantly, it was designed by humans who understood that real combat was ugly and brutal, not the elegant dance that aliens had turned warfare into over their long centuries of dominance. As the human fleet prepared for its first missions, reports continued to come in from across human space about alien harassment and attacks. Cargo ships were being destroyed for minor route violations. Passenger vessels were being boarded and searched without cause. Human colonies on the frontier were being denied access to trade routes that they needed to survive. Each incident added fuel to the growing anger on Earth and in the human colonies scattered across nearby star systems. People who had once dreamed of joining galactic civilization now spoke of defending themselves against it. The aliens had created the very enemy they claimed to be protecting the galaxy from through their own actions and prejudice. President Walsh addressed the people of Earth one final time before the fleet departed on its first mission. She reminded them that humans had always been underestimated by those who measured strength only by size and technology. History was full of examples of determined underdogs defeating seemingly superior opponents through courage, innovation, and refusal to surrender. The human fleet left Earth orbit on a cold morning in November, heading toward the frontier where alien forces had been most aggressive in their treatment of human ships and colonies. Admiral Cole stood on her bridge watching Earth shrink behind them, knowing that they were crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Behind them, the planet continued its preparations for war. Factories that had once made consumer goods were converted to weapons production. Universities that had trained scientists and doctors began teaching military engineering and combat medicine. The first real battle between humans and aliens began, not with a massive invasion, but with what the Zephyrians expected would be a simple demonstration of their power. High Admiral Keith Vell assembled a fleet of 30 ships to enter the Sol system and force Earth's immediate surrender through overwhelming display of superior technology. The Zephyrian fleet was beautiful to see as it moved through space toward Earth's solar system. Each ship was a work of art with crystalline hulls that sparkled like diamonds in the light from distant stars. Their energy shields created colorful displays around each vessel as they moved in perfect formation through the darkness between worlds. Admiral Susan Cole watched the approaching alien fleet from the bridge of the UES Defiance, her 12 human ships arranged in a defensive formation around Earth and its moon. Her vessels looked crude and ugly compared to the elegant alien ships, but they carried weapons that no one in the galaxy had seen before in actual combat. Lieutenant Commander Ben Turner sat in the cockpit of his fighter, one of 40 small craft, launched from the human carriers. His ship was fast and maneuverable, designed to get close to enemy vessels and attack weak points that larger ships could not target. Ben had trained for months on simulators, but this would be his first real battle against alien forces. The Zephyrian admiral sent a message to the human fleet demanding immediate surrender and withdrawal of all human military forces. He promised that Earth would be spared if they accepted alien authority and agreed to dismantle their defense programs. Any resistance would result in the complete destruction of human civilization, as an example to other primitive species. Susan Cole responded with a message of her own, rejecting the alien demands and ordering the Zephyrian fleet to leave human space immediately. She reminded the alien commander that they were in territory belonging to Earth and had no legal right to make threats against human worlds or ships. The battle began when the lead Zephyrian ship fired a warning shot across the bow of the Defiance. The energy beam was intended to demonstrate alien power without causing damage, but Susan took it as the opening of hostilities. She gave the order for her ships to open fire with everything they had. The railguns mounted on human ships accelerated metal projectiles to nearly 20% of light speed before launching them at the alien fleet. The Zephyrians had never faced kinetic weapons traveling at such velocities, and their energy shields, designed to deflect lasers and particle beams, provided no protection against solid metal moving at relativistic speeds. The first Zephyrian ship to be hit simply exploded. The metal slug punched through its crystalline hull and continued through the entire length of the vessel, destroying everything in its path. The beautiful alien ship broke apart in a shower of glittering fragments that reflected the light from Earth's sun. High Admiral Kethvel could not believe what he was seeing. His advanced shields had failed completely against primitive human weapons. He ordered his ships to return fire with their energy weapons while moving into evasive patterns to avoid the devastating human projectiles. The alien energy beams struck human ships, but found them protected by thick armor designed specifically to absorb and disperse energy attacks. Where Zephyrian hulls were elegant and thin, human ships were built like flying fortresses with multiple layers of protection. The beautiful alien weapons that had dominated the galaxy for centuries barely scratched the crude human armor. Captain Melissa Ward commanded the engineering teams aboard the Defiance, watching the battle data and making real-time adjustments to their weapons and defenses. As alien energy beams hit their ship, her teams analyzed the frequency and power of the attacks, then modified their armor to provide better protection against those specific weapons. This was something the aliens had never encountered before. Their enemies usually fought with fixed capabilities that never changed during battle, but humans constantly adapted their tactics and technology based on what they learned from each exchange of fire. Every shot taught them something new about their opponents. Ben Turner dove his fighter through the space between the larger ships, targeting the weapon systems on alien vessels. His small craft was too fast for the Zephyrian point defense systems, which were designed to stop energy projectiles rather than physical objects. He launched missiles that struck alien ships at their most vulnerable points. The tide of battle turned quickly as more Zephyrian ships fell to human weapons. The aliens had superior numbers and more advanced technology, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to follow the established rules of galactic warfare. Human tactics were unpredictable and brutal, focusing on destroying enemy capability, rather than demonstrating superior power. Dr. Lisa Morgan monitored alien communications from the command center on Earth. She could hear the growing panic in Zephyrian voices as their carefully planned demonstration turned into a disaster. Their commanders were asking for reinforcements and reporting that human weapons were far more dangerous than intelligence had suggested. High Admiral Kethvel tried to rally his remaining ships for a coordinated attack on the human flagship. If he could destroy the Defiance, the other human ships might surrender rather than continue fighting without their leader. But Admiral Cole had anticipated this tactic and positioned her ship to draw enemy fire, while her other vessels flanked the alien formation. The Zephyrian Admiral's ship was one of the most advanced vessels in their fleet, with shields and armor that had never been penetrated in 1,000 years of combat. But when 3 human railgun projectiles struck it simultaneously from different angles, even its superior defenses failed. The alien flagship broke apart just like the smaller ships that had died earlier in the battle, with their commander dead and half their fleet destroyed. The surviving Zephyrian ships began to retreat toward the edge of the solar system. Admiral Cole ordered her forces to pursue them, not to destroy the fleeing aliens but to make sure they left human space completely and did not return with reinforcements. The Battle of Luna Base, as it came to be known, lasted only 4 hours, but changed everything about galactic politics. News of the human victory spread quickly through alien communication networks, causing shock and confusion among species that had never imagined that the primitive humans could defeat a major Zephyrian fleet. Ben Turner and the other fighter pilots who survived the battle became heroes on Earth and in the human colonies. Their success proved that human tactics and determination could overcome superior alien technology when applied with intelligence and courage. The galaxy had underestimated not just human weapons, but human fighting spirit. Captain Ward's engineering. Teams continued working even after the battle ended, studying wreckage from destroyed alien ships and learning everything they could about Zephyrian technology. Every piece of debris taught them something new about their enemies and how to fight them more effectively in future battles. The political consequences of the victory were immediate and far-reaching. Species that had been oppressed by the Zephyrian alliance for centuries began to wonder if the time had come to challenge their masters. If humans could defeat the mighty Zephyrian fleet, perhaps other supposedly inferior races could also fight for their freedom. President Walsh addressed the people of Earth and the human colonies, praising the courage of their defenders but warning that this was only the beginning of a larger conflict. The Zephyrians would not accept defeat easily, and would return with larger fleets and better preparation for fighting human forces. General Nathan Pierce began planning for the next phase of the war. Knowing that the element of surprise was now lost, the aliens would study the battle records and develop new tactics to counter human advantages. But humans had advantages beyond their weapons technology that the aliens still did not understand. The victory celebration on Earth was mixed with preparation for harder battles to come. Factories increased their production of weapons and ships while scientists worked to develop new technologies based on what they had learned from captured alien equipment. The species that had been dismissed as too weak for galactic citizenship was preparing to prove that strength came in many forms. Admiral Cole stood on her damaged bridge, looking at the stars where the alien fleet had fled. She knew that this battle had announced to the galaxy that humanity would no longer accept being treated as inferior beings. But she also knew that the real war was just beginning, and the aliens would not make the same mistakes twice. The wreckage floating around Earth's moon was evidence that human determination and ingenuity could overcome seemingly impossible odds. But it was also a reminder that the galaxy was a dangerous place, where survival depended on being willing and able to fight for everything that mattered. The peaceful species that had once dreamed of joining galactic civilization had become warriors, out of necessity, and they were very good at it. The victory at Luna Base was only the beginning as humanity proved that their success was not just luck, but the result of a completely different approach to warfare that the galaxy had never seen before. General Nathan Pierce understood that humans could not win by trying to match alien technology, but had to use their own unique strengths to fight in ways their enemies could not predict or counter. Colonel Jack Martinez led the first human ground assault on the Zephyrian mining world of Kepler 186b 3 months after the space battle. The planet was rich in rare minerals that the aliens needed for their advanced technology, making it an important target that would hurt their ability to build new ships and weapons. The Zephyrian defenders expected a traditional siege where human forces would surround their fortified positions and try to break through with superior firepower. Instead, Jack's Marines used tactics that confused and frightened the alien defenders, who had never faced such unpredictable enemies. Sergeant Amy Davis commanded a squad of 12 Marines who infiltrated the alien base through maintenance tunnels that the Zephyrians had never thought to guard properly. While the main alien force waited for a frontal assault that never came, Amy's team attacked their power systems and communication networks from inside their own defenses. The aliens were individually stronger and tougher than humans, with their crystalline skin providing natural armor that could stop most projectiles. But they fought as individuals rather than coordinated teams, each warrior trying to prove their personal courage and skill instead of working together for tactical advantage. Human. Marines had trained for years in small unit tactics that emphasized teamwork and mutual support. When Sergeant Davis's squad encountered a Zephyrian warrior, who could have defeated any one of them in single combat, they attacked as a group from multiple directions simultaneously, overwhelming their stronger opponent through coordination and planning. Dr. Carl Thompson had developed psychological warfare techniques based on human understanding of fear and morale. While alien species approach combat with logical precision, humans knew how uncertainty and terror could break down enemy resistance even before physical fighting began. Carl's teams used sound warfare, broadcasting human music and voices through captured alien communication systems. The strange sounds disrupted alien concentration and created anxiety among defenders who could not understand what they were hearing. Combined with attacks that came from unexpected directions at unpredictable times, this psychological pressure broke down alien discipline. The Vorthan Empire sent a fleet to support their Zephyrian allies, confident that their space-hardened warriors would succeed where the more civilized Zephyrians had failed. Vorthan soldiers could survive in vacuum for hours and were trained from birth for combat in zero-gravity environments. Major Tom Lewis commanded the human marine units that faced the Vorthan assault on the orbital station above Kepler 186b. The alien warriors were everything their reputation claimed, individually superior to humans in almost every way that mattered for space combat. But Tom had studied their fighting methods and found weaknesses that the Vorthans themselves did not recognize. The Vorthan warriors attacked in traditional formation, expecting to overwhelm human positions through superior individual capability and environmental adaptation. Instead, Tom's Marines used the station's own systems against the invaders, venting atmosphere to create chaotic conditions that favored human flexibility over alien brute strength. When sections of the station lost pressure, human Marines in full environmental suits could maneuver normally, while Vorthan warriors, despite their natural resistance to vacuum, found their combat effectiveness reduced by the need to adapt to rapidly changing conditions. Human weapons worked the same way in vacuum as in atmosphere, while alien energy weapons behaved differently without air molecules to interact with. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led a unit that specialized in combat engineering, using explosives and structural modifications to change the battlefield in ways that gave human forces tactical advantages. While aliens expected to fight in fixed positions with predictable cover and obstacles, Sarah's teams constantly reshaped the environment to suit human tactics. The effectiveness of human ground forces came not from superior individual soldiers, but from their ability to work as integrated teams with overlapping capabilities. Every Marine could perform multiple roles and adapt to changing situations, while alien forces relied on specialists who became vulnerable when separated from their support systems. Captain Andy Roberts commanded the human ships providing orbital support for the ground assault. His vessels used precision kinetic strikes to destroy specific alien installations, while avoiding collateral damage that might harm human forces below. This level of coordination between space and ground units was something alien military doctrine had never developed. The success of human combined arms operations impressed even their enemies. Alien military observers had never seen such close cooperation between different types of forces, with each element supporting the others in real-time responses to changing battlefield conditions. It was like watching a single organism with many different parts working toward one goal. As human forces pushed deeper into alien territory, they began encountering species that had been conquered and oppressed by the Zephyrian alliance for generations. Many of these beings had given up hope of ever being free from alien domination, but the sight of humans defeating their oppressors inspired new courage and determination. The Kepler system contained 3 worlds inhabited by the Altarian people, a species that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians for over 500 years. When human forces liberated the first Altarian settlement, the alien refugees could hardly believe that their liberation was real. Commander Rachel Stone, Helen's sister who had joined the military after the attack on the research vessel, worked with the freed Altarians to establish cooperation between human forces and local resistance groups. The aliens had been fighting a secret war against their oppressors for decades, but lacked the weapons and organization needed to achieve real success. Human military advisors began training Altarian fighters in the tactics that had proven so effective against Zephyrian and Vorthan forces. The combination of alien local knowledge and human military innovation created resistance movements that the established powers could not control or predict. Dr. Lisa Morgan, now working as a liaison between human command and allied alien species, discovered that the galaxy contained dozens of oppressed peoples who had been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge the existing order. The human victory had given them hope that change was possible. The Terran Federation's promise of equality and self-determination attracted allies that the Zephyrian alliance had taken for granted. species that had provided resources and labor, for the dominant races began to rebel, cutting off supplies and support that the alien military needed to continue fighting. General Pierce realized that human military success was creating political changes that might be even more important than battlefield victories. The galaxy's power structure had depended on the belief that the established races were too strong to challenge, but human victories had shattered that illusion forever. The battle for the Kepler system lasted 6 weeks and ended with complete human victory. Zephyrian and Vorthan forces withdrew after losing over half their ships and equipment, leaving behind a population of liberated aliens who welcomed human protection and alliance. News of the campaign spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring more resistance movements and creating panic among the ruling species, who had never imagined that their authority could be challenged successfully. The humans, who had been dismissed as too weak for galactic citizenship, were reshaping the political map of known space. Admiral Susan Cole, promoted after her success at Luna Base, began planning the next phase of human expansion. Her fleets were growing stronger as Earth's shipyards produced new vessels incorporating lessons learned from each battle. But more importantly, her forces now included allied ships crewed by species that had joined the human cause. The war was changing from a simple conflict between humans and the Zephyrian Alliance into a galaxy-wide struggle between those who believed in freedom and equality and those who insisted on maintaining the old system of dominance and oppression. Humanity had become the leader of a revolution that was spreading to every corner of civilized space. President Walsh announced the formation of the Terran Federation, open to all species that accepted the principles of mutual respect and democratic government. The organization that had begun as Earth's desperate attempt to defend itself was becoming the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. The aliens who had started the war by attacking human ships and colonies now found themselves fighting, not just against human military forces, but against their own former subjects who had found the courage to demand freedom. The galaxy would never be the same again. The final campaign of the war began with the largest human fleet ever assembled moving toward Zephyr Prime, the capital world of the alien alliance that had started the conflict by rejecting humanity's peaceful request for membership. Fleet Admiral Patricia Quinn commanded over 300 ships from dozens of species that had joined the Terran Federation in their fight for freedom. Captain Steve Johnson piloted the stealth ship UES Shadow, a vessel designed using technology captured from alien ships and improved by human engineering. His mission was the most dangerous of the entire war, requiring him to infiltrate the heavily defended Zephyrian home system and gather intelligence about their final defenses. The Shadow was invisible to most alien sensors because it used a combination of human stealth technology and captured alien cloaking devices. Steve's ship could move through enemy space undetected, allowing him to observe Zephyrian preparations and identify weaknesses in their supposedly impregnable defense network. What Steve discovered shocked even the human command staff, who had learned to expect surprises in their war against the aliens. The Zephyrian defense fleet was much smaller than expected, with many ships missing from their home system. Intelligence suggested that most of their remaining forces had been pulled back to defend only the most critical worlds. The reason for this change became clear when Steve's team intercepted alien communications discussing massive rebellions throughout the Zephyrian territories. Species that had been loyal subjects for thousands of years were rising up against their masters, inspired by human victories and supported by Federation weapons and advisors. High Counselor Zarthex, the same alien leader who had rejected humanity's original diplomatic mission, was now dealing with the collapse of his empire from within. The proud Zephyrian alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia was breaking apart as subject species demanded the same freedom that humans had won through military victory. Admiral Quinn studied Steve's intelligence reports while her fleet prepared for what everyone expected to be the bloodiest battle of the war. Attacking the enemy capital world should have required enormous casualties and months of fighting, but the human commander saw an opportunity for something different. General Laura Bennett, humanity's chief negotiator, had been developing surrender, terms that would end the war without the massive destruction that a direct assault on Zephyr Prime would cause. Her proposals were revolutionary for galactic politics, offering peace through cooperation rather than conquest and subjugation. The human fleet arrived at Zephyr Prime to find a world in chaos. Alien ships were fleeing the system as reports came in of more rebellions and the collapse of Zephyrian authority on dozens of worlds. The mighty empire that had seemed unbeatable just 2 years earlier was crumbling faster than anyone had thought possible. The battle itself lasted only 6 hours, but its outcome was determined more by psychology than firepower. When human ships demonstrated their ability to strike at the heart of Zephyrian civilization, alien morale collapsed completely. The species that had dominated the galaxy through superior technology and military might suddenly face enemies who were better at warfare than they were. Captain Lisa Chen, commanding one of the assault ships in the final attack, watched alien vessels surrendering without firing a shot as the reality of their situation became clear. The Zephyrians had built their empire on the belief that they were naturally superior to other species, but human victories had proven that superiority was not permanent or inevitable. High Counselor Zarthex requested terms for surrender from his bunker beneath the capital city, the same alien leader who had once dismissed humans as too primitive for galactic civilization now begging for mercy from the species he had scorned. The transformation was complete and shocking to everyone who witnessed it. General Bennett's peace terms surprised the galaxy even more than human military victories had. Instead of demanding tribute and submission from defeated enemies, the Terran Federation offered partnership and equality to all species willing to accept democratic principles and respect for individual rights. The Galactic Cooperation Treaty that ended the war established new rules for interstellar civilization based on human ideals of freedom and self-determination. Species that had been enemies during the fighting were invited to join the Federation as equal partners, with their rights and territories protected by the same laws that governed human worlds. Ambassador Richard Foster, who had been a junior diplomat during the original mission to request alliance membership, now spoke at the treaty signing ceremony as humanity's chief representative to the galaxy. His words about cooperation and mutual respect were heard by billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The post-war galaxy was completely transformed from the rigid hierarchy that had existed for millennia. The Zephyrian alliance was dissolved and replaced by the Democratic Federation, where every species had an equal voice regardless of their military power or technological advancement. It was everything that humans had originally hoped for when they first ventured into galactic politics. Dr. Carl Thompson, who had developed psychological warfare techniques during the conflict, now worked on programs to help former enemies adjust to life in a free society. Many aliens had difficulty understanding concepts like individual rights and democratic government after centuries of authoritarian rule. The integration of former Alliance species into Federation society was challenging, but ultimately successful. Beings who had been raised to believe in natural hierarchy and submission to stronger races had to learn new ways of thinking about themselves and their relationships with others. President Walsh, addressing the first Galactic Congress held on Earth, reflected on how much had changed since the day when human diplomats were laughed out of the alien council chamber. The species that had been too weak for membership in the old alliance had become the founders and leaders of a new kind of galactic civilization. Admiral Cole, now commanding Federation defense forces that included ships from dozens of species, established new military doctrines based on cooperation rather than domination. The same tactics that had defeated the Zephyrian alliance were adapted to protect freedom and democracy throughout known space. The shipyards above Earth that had once built desperate weapons for survival now produced exploration vessels and colony ships for the dozens of species that wanted to spread across the galaxy under Federation protection. The technology that had won the war was being used to create a better future for everyone. Captain Ryan Brooks, whose cargo ship had been harassed by alien patrols at the beginning of the conflict, now commanded a Federation fleet that protected trade routes and ensured that all species could travel freely through space without fear of persecution or attack. The memorial to Dr. Helen Stone and the crew members who died in the attack that started the war was dedicated on the anniversary of the Federation's founding. Their sacrifice had not been in vain, but had led to freedom and justice for billions of beings throughout the galaxy. Human colonies that had been isolated and threatened during the early years of contact with alien civilization now became centers of learning and cooperation, where different species worked together on scientific research and cultural exchange. The frontier settlements that had struggled to survive were now thriving communities. The transformation was not complete or perfect, and there were still challenges to overcome as the galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Some species found it difficult to abandon old prejudices and accept equality with beings they had once considered inferior. Others struggled with the responsibilities that came with freedom after centuries of being told what to do by their superiors. But the fundamental change was irreversible and growing stronger with each passing year. The galaxy had learned that strength did not come from the hardness of one's armor or the power of one's weapons, but from the willingness to stand up for principles and fight for what was right. Ambassador Foster, speaking at the 10th anniversary celebration of the treaty signing, reminded his audience that the victory had not really been about human military superiority, but about ideas that were stronger than any weapon. The concepts of equality, cooperation, and mutual respect had proven more powerful than the energy cannons and quantum shields that had once dominated galactic civilization. The species that had been dismissed as too weak for membership in the old galactic order had not just joined that order, but had replaced it with something better. Humanity had proven that true strength came not from dominating others, but from inspiring them to be better than they had ever imagined possible.